The White House took away Jim Acosta's press pass. Because Jim Acosta is a bad person who's in it for himself, who hogs all the time and causes a lot of problems, and he besmirches the good name of journalism. I do not like Jim Acosta. I think he's there because he wants to get a show, and he wants to get more followers, and it works. He's manipulating the system to gain power for himself. He is a bad human being. Well, he lost his press pass, but a judge ruled the White House violated his Fifth Amendment rights, not his first. Fifth Amendment rights means he deserves due process. It's complicated. There's a past ruling on this. I did an interview with Will Chamberlain, and he said, here's what's going to happen. Courts are going to rule, potentially, that his press pass, his Fifth Amendment rights were violated, and he requires process. Due process, meaning the White House needs to inform him of why they're taking his press pass away. He needs to respond, and then he loses his press pass. What happened? Exactly what Will said happened. The judge says, give him his press pass back, and Trump says, sure, but after this injunction period is up in 2 weeks, we're taking it away again, and here's why. You have till Sunday to respond. So here's the story from Fox News. We also have the letter, and I want to read the letter that the White House sent to Acosta. So after this, when they receive the letter, CNN requests emergency briefing as White House looks to revoke Jim Acosta's credential again. You know, I think the important thing to point out, Trump does not have to give a press conference. He doesn't, okay? I think it is dangerous if Trump restricts the press because he doesn't like their questions, for sure. But what you need to realize is Trump is under no obligation to give a press conference. Should he? I believe he should. But I think a lot of people on the left who are screaming, you know, Jim Acosta is a fight for the free press, don't realize Trump could be like, all right, you know what? No more press events later, and walk away. And then no one gets anything, okay? So wouldn't it be better that Jim Acosta is removed, but the press events continue, than to Trump just walk away? Because Trump has threatened to walk away if this keeps up. CNN and its White House correspondent Jim Acosta again accused the Trump administration of violating their constitutional rights in new papers filed with the U.S. District Court on Monday after spending much of the weekend exchanging legal threats in the wake of Friday's ruling by a federal judge temporarily restoring Acosta's credential. Acosta was informed of a preliminary decision for his White House credential to be revoked once again after the temporary 14-day order expires. The attorney for CNN and Acosta claim the White House is attempting to punish the reporter based on retroactive application of rules that aren't written and requested a hearing for the week of November 26. The filing also claims the Trump administration did not respond to CNN's offer to work with the White House on establishing protocols for future press conferences. The White House sent a letter to Acosta on Friday that was submitted as evidence in the court filing. The letter explains that Acosta's credential was revoked due to inappropriate conduct, noting that the White House didn't think formal rules for journalists were necessary prior to the CNN's reporters' actions. The letter explains that reporters are expected to ask a single question when called upon, and then yield the floor unless a follow-up is permitted. That's normal! Okay, listen. You've got a press secretary, you got Sarah Sanders, maybe it's Trump. Look, I don't believe politicians are honest. I definitely think Sarah Sanders is going to give you the political rope around and say, oh, you know what? I feel like these things are so just pointless because you know you're going to get a canned response. It's not going to tell you anything about anything. You think if you ask them, like, is Donald Trump planning on, firing Mueller using Whitaker? What the hell would they say? Yes. Sure, we're going to commit a crime. No, they're going to be like, of course not. And then they might go ahead and do it anyway. Of course they're going to say whatever they want. It's pointless. It's just show. But you know what? I do think it's important because sometimes you may get a question that reveals something in how they can or cannot answer, right? So it still is valuable, right? The thing is, you've got all of these press, all of these journalists trying to ask their questions. And obviously they can only talk to so many people. So when Jim Acosta stands up for several minutes and refuses to hand the mic back, even struggling with that young woman, it's like, yo, dude, chill out. Other people are here. Other people want a chance to ask some questions. So whether or not the rules are written down, there is something, there's decorum, as they call it, meaning don't be a dick. Let other people do their jobs too. Trump gave you a ton of time, okay? When he says, fine, that's enough, you had 3 questions, move on, you move on, okay? Jim Acosta doesn't want to do that because Jim Acosta wants to make the show all about Jim Acosta. Dear Dyer, as they say. These basic common sense practices are necessary for orderly press conferences that are fair to all journalists in attendance. Yes. Acosta's hard pass, which provided expedited access to White House grounds, was suspended earlier this month. Yeah, we know all that. Acosta's legal team objected to the letter, calling it an attempt to provide retroactive due process in the papers filed Monday. But what they don't seem to understand, and sure, look, I'm not a lawyer, they can argue this. here's all they got to do. Say, okay, here's your press pass back. We're now going to inform you that these are the rules, and because of this, and because of how you behave typically, we're not going to let you come back in. What's the issue? They responded, to say the least. The letter is a disappointing response to the court's decision and our attempts to resolve the matter amicably. Acosta's attorney wrote in response. More fundamentally, though, it is further evidence of your client's animus towards Mr. Acosta based on his work as CNN's chief White House correspondent. The response also declared that Acosta's legal team will seek expedited discovery, including depositions from all defendants on their intentions and the conduct. I also want to point out what CNN filed in court was wrong. They claimed that there were people there who witnessed things who weren't actually there. Right? They got a bit of what they said was wrong, and so I wonder if that would take into I wonder if the judge would take that into consideration. Following the temporary decision, Trump told Fox News' Chris Wallace that he will kick Acosta out of the press conferences if he misbehaves going forward. Wallace asked what rules the administration will put in place going forward as a result of the judge's decision. We're writing them now. We'll have rules of decorum. You know you can't keep asking questions. The White House is continuing to violate the First and Fifth Amendments of the Constitution. These actions threaten all journalists and news organizations. Jim Acosta and CNN will continue to report the news about the White House and the president, CNN said in a statement. Last week, Fox News announced that it would support CNN's effort to restore Acosta's White House credential and filed an amicus brief with the U.S. District Court. I believe One American News may have been the only group to actually write an amicus, because they all said they were going to do it and they didn't do it. They may have by now. One American News wrote it in favor of the White House, which was interesting. Listen, I don't have a problem with Jim Acosta repeatedly asking questions. I have a problem with Jim Acosta hogging all the time, refusing to hand over the mic. There's a reasonable thing you can do. Should Jim Acosta and every other journalist push back on the press secretary and Trump? 100%, absolutely. Should Jim Acosta stand up and say, Trump, I want to challenge your statement. You know this is not evasion. You called it an invasion. Whoa, buddy. Are you going to ask a question or not? I don't care what you think. I don't care what you're saying. You can ask Trump. Trump, this is, most people would say this is not an invasion. They're asylum seekers. Why would you call it an invasion? And there you go. There's you, saying, here's the framing of the question. Now I want you to answer. Instead, Jim Acosta debates the president. That's not what this is about. Your job isn't to debate. We're not having President Trump debate time. Your job is to ask a question so we can hear the answer. Plain and simple. You'd say, Mr. Trump, why are you calling this group an invasion when they're clearly not an armed force of any sort? They're simply seeking asylum. And then let Trump respond. That's how questions work. You want to debate? Go start a show. But that's clearly what he's trying to do. However, we have here the actual letter. This is from Mediaite. And so I think it's not too long, so we'll read through this. Here's what it says. We are writing to give you formal written notice that we have made a preliminary decision to suspend your hard pass due to your conduct at the President's November 7th, 2018 press conference. The President is aware of this preliminary decision and concurs. The factual basis for this preliminary decision to suspend your pass is as follows. As you know, President Trump has provided an extraordinary amount of access to journalists to ask questions while operating an extremely open and transparent White House. The White House does not have a written code of conduct for journalists participating in presidential press conferences. We had not previously thought that set of formal rules for journalist behavior at press conferences was necessary. That is because it had previously been a widely shared understanding that 1. A journalist called upon to ask a question will ask a single question and, having received a response, will yield the floor unless, at the discretion of the President or White House official answering questions, a follow-up question or question is permitted, and, after which follow-ups the journalist will yield the floor, and 2. When a journalist has had his or her questions answered, the journalist is expected to yield the floor, and when applicable, physically surrender any microphone the journalist is using to White House staff for use by the next questioner. 3 basic common sense practices are necessary for orderly press conferences that are fair to all journalists in attendance. They have served the public, the press, and the President well. Your behavior at a November 7th press conference violated the basic standards governing such events and is, in our preliminary judgment, sufficient factual basis to revoke your hard pass. While this is our preliminary decision, we would be pleased to consider any material you would like to submit in response to it. Should you wish to contest this preliminary decision on the factual basis set forth in this letter, please submit a written response to us in writing by email, in writing via email by 5 p.m. on Sunday, November 18th. Should you not submit a response by that time, this preliminary decision will be final. You may submit that response by emailing it to one or both of us. We are happy to consider that response and any other materials you would like to submit before a final decision is made in the matter. Should you choose to contest this preliminary decision and submit a written response to this formal notice, we will consider your written response and will issue a final determination in writing 3 p.m. on Monday, November 19th. Of course, you will continue to maintain your hard pass while the temporary restraining order issued on November 16th remains in effect. Well, there you have it. I want to end by saying, first, I'll reiterate, Jim Acosta is a bad person. Straight up bad person. He's not doing journalism. He's doing opinion nonsense debating the president. But here's what I think they're doing. They're saying, listen, I am not going to allow you to use our press briefings to bolster yourself and generate headlines for your name and build your career off of nonsense where you're disrupting things. And I think that's fair. And that's why, as of recently, I did used to block people on Twitter. But there are a few people that will pull my tweets out of context and then lie about what I'm saying because people don't respond and then just drag me. And so I've decided the only criteria I have for blocking is not criticism. By all means, say whatever nonsense about me you want. But people who specifically try and lie about what I'm saying, lie about what I believe, like most of you who watch me know that I lean more towards we should probably enact some type of gun control and have an honest discussion about how we can implement certain rules to maintain the right of the citizenry to keep and bear arms, while saying we can still have some restrictions that make sure crazy folks and people who want to commit crimes don't get them, which we do. And the point I'm trying to make is there are some places in my understanding that aren't. I don't want to get into a gun debate. The point is, I'm bringing this up because people will take my tweets out of context and claim I'm a gun nut. I don't own it. I'm from the city. I'm always been social liberal on these positions, but they lie about me. They lie. And that's when I'm like, you know what? I am not going to allow you to just keep refreshing my Twitter account to lie about me, to drum up controversy, which can get me hurt in the future, right? By all means, you're free to lie, but by blocking them, they can no longer take my tweets out of sight, out of mind. And I've only done this for a few people, but they're consistent offenders. I have a high tolerance for nonsense. I have a high tolerance for liars, and I recognize the First Amendment allows them to say certain things. They're allowed to be dumb, but slander, libel, misinformation, that's not protected, okay? If you want to smear me, and that's why I think, long story short, that's what they're doing. They're basically saying Jim Acosta's only goal is to disrupt, to make press for himself. We've got to get rid of him, and that's what they're doing. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. I'm going to get out of here. Come back tomorrow, youtube.com/timcast, different channel. I have more videos at 4 p.m. at that channel, and the videos on this channel start at 6 p.m., so I'll see you guys tomorrow.